we are going to go into the Patreon poll topic. And Ian, how do you access that good old Patreon poll?
You go to patreon.com/CU podcast. You determine an amount of money to give us each month, and we in return give you some things. I do a writing. My most recent one was on my birthday feasting. You get the full video podcast.
You do?
Get the full video podcast. I do a monthly hangout. This month's hangout was just last week. It was great to see everyone. And
we voted on a Patreon.
We do a Patreon poll.
So in third place, what video game should be turned into a Broadway musical? 25%. That's pretty good for third place. That's hanging on. There's some people that really want that one. In second place, 32%, Ian, in your wheelhouse, tips for a new game store employee. And in first place, Ian, you're excited for this topic. PC games, 42%. PC games that deserve a reboot/remake.
I desperately want to see a remake of Lightspeed or Hyperspeed.
I think I played Lightspeed.
Lightspeed is one of my favorite games of all time that I can't play very much anymore because emulating it is kind of a pain in the ass.
Emulating.
It was released by Microprose, and it is a interstellar space travel simulator. Lightspeed is an early example of those types of games that are similar to Elite, and even in some ways to games that would come out later, like Privateer. Basically, they're games where you can fly around space and you have to colonize planets to get resources, basically. But in doing so, you obviously enter the airspace of rival aliens, friendly aliens. You can talk with them, negotiate treaties, and they would ask you to go out and fight their enemies. And I had never played anything like that when I was young. And the first time I played that, and my dad was kind of like trying to explain it to me as it was like my first experience with something open world. My first experience with something that was not very limited to like a platformer or an arcade game.
Sure.
And Hyperspeed came out a little bit later, added, I believe, more alien races, but then it stopped. This is a game that I would love to see come out in modern times, because games like this existed. These sorts of space exploration games existed for a long time, and they have kind of dried up in recent years. It's why I was so excited for No Man's Sky when it was first announced. And then I was let down by No Man's Sky, and then No Man's Sky turned into a great game regardless. But there's not a lot of the interstellar war going on.
Star Citizen, come on.
Star Citizen does not exist.
That exists.
But there's not a lot of the there are bad pirates and things like that in No Man's Sky, but there isn't like the...
It's not structured as that. That's the game, though.
Right.
It's not like a Privateer.
Right. That sort of, the political intrigue and that stuff doesn't exist. You're not negotiating treaties and you're not... Yeah, exactly. You're not negotiating treaties and tiptoeing around and trying...
Or you're talking about from a higher level. You want it more like... What was that?
Star Control.
Space strategy game. Star Control was one?
Yeah, Star Control.
I'm trying to think of another one. Okay.
But yeah, I want different factions that you can get in good with, and that doesn't really exist in No Man's Sky. And there is a modern Elite, but the reviews were all over the place on
Dangerous?
it. Elite Dangerous. So I kind of want to try it, but at the same point in time, I don't know that I'm going to get exactly what I'm looking for. So that's like one type of game that I would absolutely love to see remade, is those sorts of space games. But specifically Lightspeed, a thing I loved about Lightspeed was you could always you could go to your engine room and it showed you a huge working engine, and you could replace parts with better parts to get more mileage and stuff like that. So
okay.
you could trick out your spaceship too.
So a little bit more than Privateer.
Yeah, you could trick out your spaceship. The combat was interesting. So yeah, I liked that. Another type of game that I would love to see again, and I think there's actually kind of a chance for it. So I saw a point-and-click adventure game come out the other day, and unfortunately I can't remember the name, but it uses a EGA palette. And
Really?
and it looks very true to the era. And type of game that I used to love playing when on the Apple IIe was the text parser based games, like the text adventures, but the graphic ones. And this is one that I don't think I'll ever really get to see again, but I really miss like what they would try to convey with those simple images. But I think a text-based adventure game with good art would still be something that I would enjoy. Text-based adventure games do still exist, mostly as interactive fiction, but to see something that kind of mimics that old school style, I would play that. I'm not one that normally gets hung up on nostalgia, but I do get very nostalgic for the Apple IIe. There's something specific about that and the look of it that grabs me, and those were the games that I played a lot of.
Okay. Going back to, I guess, space stuff, I know we have a new Star Wars dogfighting game come out, but you could get away with just doing a remake HD remake of like X-Wing and TIE Fighter.
Yes, absolutely.
It had the same missions, same gameplay, or very similar, and just updating the graphics. And I think you would sell that to a lot of people.
They're a little less arcadey, a little bit more strategic, a little bit slower, but still very, very fun. And I think that would work. I think that would work.
You would get a lot of people. Obviously, there's no multiplayer, then obviously, but I think people would be into that. I'm sure I'm sure it sells well on good old games. They'll sell like probably very well still.
Oh, it has to.
Because those are the beefiest Star Wars games of their time, in terms of just just like all different missions. More, it adds to the lore. You discover the new ships to fly and things like that. You got Admiral Akbar to show up and tell you about the calamari cruiser you got to protect and things like that. Oh, I think that's one of that really hit me. Is like that would do well. And I'm the only person that thought about that. Other people are like, yeah, I could see that doing very well. That's a big one for me. With PC games, it's hard to come up with remakes for PC games because a lot of the popular PC games got sequels or had iterations. I even thought about, I think even Sam & Max got updated games over time and things like that. So
they got the Telltale games.
Yeah.
Point-and-click adventures did start to come back. XCOM was one that I wanted to see done again forever and ever and ever. It happened. They did redo XCOM, or they made sequels to XCOM that play very much like the originals. Heroes of Might and Magic is a game that I love. I don't think there's been a truly great entry in that series in a while. I would love to see another one of those. I would like to see perhaps a reinvigoration. Oh, this was the other one I was going to mention too. I would also perhaps like to see a reinvigoration of the first-person dungeon crawler, the wizardry, Heroes of Might and Magic.
That's one of my least favorite genre.
Really? I fucking love them.
I don't like them. You know what? Nah.
I love them.
You like dungeon crawl? Just you running around
slow
in
and grindy,
and
plotting and numbers.
Make your own fucking map up, like we're living in the Stone Ages.
Smoke a big bowl and just let all those numbers wash over my brain and slowly tickle it.
Roll your character in the beginning.
Yeah.
Okay.
Watch it happen.
I was trying to think of one that then I saw Pirates. I'm like, but there was a Pirates that came out in 2004. So that was already remade.
Pirates is great, but Pirates, I agree with you, and I'll give you this, because Pirates was made and has just been being remade over and over. It was on computers, then it got an NES version, then it got the Genesis version, then it got the Xbox and PC version, and it's time for us to get another version of Sid Meier's Pirates.
Okay, so you want Pirates 2, basically, you finally want.
Sid Meier's Pirates is a fantastic game. I even love the NES version. The NES version is fantastic. It's great.
Did I give it 5 stars or 4.5? No,
it's not a 5-star.
4.5, I think I gave it.
Awesome game.
It's so deep. For an NES game, obviously, but go back and play the Pirates Gold on good old games for like $2 or whatever, and you can play that game forever. Yeah, you can play it over and over again. You don't have to follow the main story. It's a very loose main story. You can just do whatever the fuck you want. Yeah, just screw around.
I liked the Xbox one, but I think Pirates Gold, the one that they put on the Genesis, is probably my favorite.
That perfected it, right? Yeah,
that's really kind of.
I don't know the difference top of my head, but I'm sure they perfected some of the stuff and put more crap.
It's graphically nicer too.
Yeah. No, it wasn't on the Super for some reason.
No, it wasn't. I was just thinking that. Yeah.
From NES to Genesis.
Huh. What systems was Sid Meier's Pirates on?
But I came out in 2004 again, and it's the same game but just updated for PS2 era graphics on the PC. Basically, is what you want to call it. and it was probably a blast to play still. We're getting over a theme about like open world games. Obviously, need to be remade more because not that there's less of them. I mean, because obviously there's a lot of pirate games that come out now all the time. We hear about like online games. Yeah, is there any first person shooters you'd want to see remade that kind of got stuck there? Because all of those got remade too, as well.
Blood.
Even Rise of the Triad got remade. What?
Blood.
That didn't get remade?
I don't think Blood got remade. I think they they might have up-resed it actually. Blood first-person shooter.
Like most of the popular ones, I don't think I ever played Blood. Now I think
Blood's fucking awesome. You've got to play Blood. Don't worry about Blood 2, but Blood is really good.
Blood there.
Yeah, Blood Fresh Supply. That was it. It happened last year. And it's basically just like a modern re-release of Blood. But it uses the same graphics and stuff like that.
So they did a new Duke Nukem, which obviously didn't do well, but that's a new Duke Nukem that came out, what, 9 years ago already? 8 years ago? When did that come out, Duke Nukem Forever? Jesus Christ. And then I was trying to think of, like, I'm sure Serious Sam got a remake at some point.
Serious Sam has gotten a bunch of remakes.
Yeah, so, like, all the heavy hitters have been remade for the most part.
Matter of fact, I think there's a Serious Sam collection coming out that I think you can get it on the Switch right now.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's really when we think of we want remakes, it's for those genres that have fallen off, like dungeon crawlers or space exploration.
Right.
Or even space sims, or a pirate sim. Those are the ones that aren't popular. That it'd be nice to see those again. And I'm sure I'm missing some in my head, but like all the ones I liked have been remade or remastered. Especially with like good old games, they come back, they do well, they come back out with new ones eventually, or re-release them. So let me go to good old games now. I'll just see like what's on my wish list that could do for a remake that I haven't bought yet. You hate Police Quest, so it's remake Police. No, yeah. He tried to do a Kickstarter, didn't he?
Yeah, I don't think it worked.
It didn't go anywhere. Space Quest, yeah, I think Space Quest. You could have done a true spiritual. Well, I mean, this one coming out to me is not a spiritual successor. It looks like it's a little bit too different. But if you did a Space Quest reboot, I think it would do well. I actually call it King's Quest. That wasn't a true sequel. That was a different game.
Yeah.
Do you think that would?
I forgot about that.
Yeah, it came and went. No, because who the hell you advertise to? It's not the same game as the original,
right?
And the kids don't know on a PS3 what the hell King's Quest is. Do you think that would have done well if you did an actual King's Quest remake?
Yeah, it might have. I mean, you look at it, especially if it had some names behind it, because you look at stuff like Thimbleweed Park, and that did fantastic.
Okay, but that's a little bit even more newer than King's Quest, though. I mean, King's Quest is like the first run of adventure games in the 80s.
Yeah, but I mean, yes.
All right. Okay, well, that's I'm trying to think. When's the last Quake that came out?
No one cares anymore.
After Quake, was there a Quake 4?
There was.
I skipped Quake 4. I played Arena for 15 years since Quake 4. What? I would say Quake needs an update. Then is there not a Quake 5?
No. It's
been 15 years since a Quake. Is that for real? Oh, they've had Quake World and other bullshit. What is this shit? I'm surprised by that. I would think that would have done well. They just went to Doom instead, I guess, and said, "Okay, we're fine. No more Quake." All right. Well, thanks for that Patreon poll question.